Welcome to Friends in Fiction, 5 best-selling authors, endless stories. Friends in Fiction is a podcast with 5 best-selling novelists whose common love of reading, writing, and independent bookstores bound them together. With chats, author interviews, and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, these friends discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place. Best-selling novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristen Harmel, Christy Woodson Harvey, Patty Callahan Henry, and Mary Alice Monroe are 5 longtime friends with more than 80 published books to their credit. At the start of the pandemic, they got together for a virtual happy hour to talk about their books, their favorite bookstores, writing, reading, and publishing in this new uncharted territory. They're still talking, and they've added fascinating discussions with other best-selling novelists. So join them live on their Friends and Fiction Facebook group page every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, or listen and view later at your leisure.
Well, hi, everybody. We hope you had a fun and or peaceful 4th of July. And we're Friends in Fiction. We are 5 writers and friends whose common love of reading, writing, and independent bookstores binds us together. Every week we come together to chat with each other and you all to support independent booksellers. And we are so glad you are here. So, of course, I'm Mary Kay Andrews. I'm your host tonight, and my latest novel is Hello, Summer.
I'm Kristen Harmel, and my latest novel is The Book of Lost Names, out in less than 2 weeks.
Yay! I'm Christy Woodson Harvey, and my latest novel is Feels Like Falling.
And I'm Patty Callahan Henry, and my latest is Becoming Mrs. Lewis.
I'm Mary Alice Monroe, and my latest novel is On Ocean Boulevard.
And this is Friends in Fiction. As I mentioned earlier, an important part of our reason for being is to support independent bookstores who, like so many other small businesses around the country, have been adversely impacted by the pandemic. Tonight, we'd like to tell you a little bit about our bookseller, and that's bookshop.org. Bookshop.org is an online bookstore with a mission to financially support local independent bookstores. And their mission says that we believe that bookstores are essential to a healthy culture. They're where authors can connect with readers, where we discover new writers, where children get hooked on the thrill of reading that can last a lifetime. As more and more people buy their books online, bookshop.org wanted to create an easy, convenient way for readers like you to get your books and support independent bookstores at the same time. If you want to find a specific local bookstore to support, and you can do that at bookshop.org, and they'll receive the full profit off your order. Otherwise, your order will contribute to an earnings pool that will be evenly distributed among independent bookstores. And bookshop.org says they also support anyone who advocates for books through their affiliate program, which pays a 10% commission on every sale and gives a matching 10% to indie bookstores. Now, all of the F&F, that's Friends in Fiction authors' books, and any other books we mentioned tonight on the program can be ordered through the link that you will find on the Friends in Fiction website. Whew, that was a mouthful. I don't know.
And that's our show.
Hi. Let's go drink some wine. I don't know about the rest of you, but we had a very quiet 4th of July weekend here. Normally our small town has a funky little parade where neighbors gather for a viewing party with ham and biscuits and a Bloody Mary cart, followed by picnic summers around our lake and a fireworks display. But this year the pandemic rained on our parade. So instead we puttered around the house. I wrote. We had some socially distanced barbecue on our back porch with another couple. And since we can't go to our neighborhood pool this year except by reservation, on Sunday, we sat in a leaky inflatable kiddie pool.
Good for you. Good
and then we had ribs. What did you all do?
We actually went sailing, which was really fun. We went with just like one other family, and it was a big boat, so we weren't on top of each other or anything. But we went out to Cape Lookout, which is like an island here, and it has this beautiful lighthouse, and the water, it looked like the Caribbean. It was an absolutely beautiful day. And then they did have our fireworks. We did not have any parades, but there were lots of fireworks. And I love fireworks. Like I am just a sucker for fireworks. So I was probably more excited than the children to watch the fireworks.
That's what I miss the most is the fireworks. They canceled all the fireworks in Isle of Palm and Sullivan's. And so for the beaches, they didn't want the crowds. So my children and friends were all in the house. So Marcus and I hightailed it up to the mountains. And it was really, I mean, it's kind of sad. This is like a religious holiday for my husband. He is actually a member of the Pyrotechnic Guild of America.
Oh my goodness.
He's a little bit of a nerd that way. And so to miss fireworks is like missing church for him. So we went up, and you know what we did, which made it really special, is we watched Hamilton. And it was the first time I'd seen it, and now I understand what everyone was so excited about. And it felt quite patriotic to watch it on 4th of July.
Kristen, did you get to Disney World after all, or no?
Disney World still isn't open. It's funny you say that because that's our 4th of July tradition. Every year, actually on July 3rd, because they do their July 4th fireworks July 3rd and 4th. It's a tradition I've had with my mom for probably 20 years now. So we felt really sad. We didn't get to see her on July 3rd. I haven't seen my mom since March. And to miss those fireworks with her really hurt. But we did the same thing Mary Alice did. We watched Hamilton. So
did you?
Yeah.
It was so good.
It was. It eased the pain a little, but man, I missed the fireworks and I really missed my mom.
Yeah. Patty, what did you do?
So we watched Hamilton, and then same as
odd woman out here.
I know, and
Hamilton.
My sister-in-law, one of my favorite people in the world, Serena, was here, and we did our best to memorize the entire King George song. I'm going to send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. We just thought that was the funniest song we'd ever heard.
He stole the tone. He did.
Yeah, fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. But we had all these big plans for the parade. We're going to do the golf cart, and we'd ordered all this stuff to decorate the golf cart under the sea with her 2 little girls. Oh, and when they canceled everything, we decorated the golf cart anyway. Rode it around. It had waves and jellyfish, and we did the whole thing and just tried to salvage what we could and sang the King George song and drove around in a decorated golf cart.
That works.
I love it. I love it.
You do realize you're now going to have to sing the King George song for us, absolutely, right? Like, you know what you set yourself up for.
I will do a lot of things on Friends and Fiction, and sing is not one of them.
We'll see. Keep drinking that wine.
We'll see, Patty.
Hey,
what about Friends and Fiction Live?
Oh, no. Okay, so last week we somehow got on the topic of our first rock concerts, and that might have been somehow I talked about I think my first one was James Taylor and Carole King, way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And we did promise we would talk a little bit about concert and music that week. So what was everyone else's first concert? Krista?
Mine is so embarrassing. Yours is so cool. Mine was, I'm ruining any cool rap I had. It was Air Supply.
Oh, no!
Oh,
no! Oh, I can beat you with that, with uncool.
I'm all out of love. I'm so lost without you.
You said you weren't going to.
Look, she's already singing. I mean, we're going to have her with that King George song in just a minute.
Anyway, that was my that was my first concert.
Okay, no, I can beat you. I have the absolute worst. I was dating this older guy. I was maybe 20. And you have to remember, my idea of a concert was going to the opera. I mean, my first occasion was Madame Butterfly. I mean, that's what I remember. So the first time I actually went to a concert, I was 19 or 20, and I was with an older gent, and it was Tom Jones.
That's awesome.
Unusual to have fun with.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
I have a good story. That's awesome. I love Tom Jones.
I wanted to tell you, honestly, I asked my husband, Marcus, who was kind of cool back then, and I said, okay, what was your first concert? because I was going to steal it, so I didn't have to admit. And he said, "Oh, let's see, Jimi Hendrix."
Oh, that's awesome.
He saw Bob Dylan sing. I mean, he back when he was
Another
young.
one.
He saw Janis Joplin. It's
Oh,
like,
man.
no, I saw Tom Jones.
Tom Jones is great. I love Tom Jones.
How about y'all?
All right, Kristen, who was your first concert?
So my first, by a very narrow margin, was Paul McCartney, which is awesome. I mean,
Oh.
could there be a better first concert,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
No.
And then I think it was just a couple weeks later I went to the New Kids on the Block. So if the schedules had been reversed, but so Paul McCartney. But I have to say about Tom Jones, you guys, I know you all know, but I have been working on Chubby Checker's autobiography and have known him for years and years and years. Chubby Checker, who sang the Twist in the 60s.
Yeah.
He was on for his 70th birthday, which was 8 years ago, something like that, a long time ago. He was on Dancing with the Stars. And so I was in LA with him for Dancing with the Stars. And we went out to dinner for his birthday. And Tom Jones was dining a couple of tables away. And Chubby walked up to him and started singing Tom Jones songs to Tom Jones. It was just one of those moments of like rock and roll fame colliding. It was so funny. So
I covered a Tom Jones concert when I worked for the Savannah paper, and all the ladies were throwing their panties and their room keys at Tom Jones. I was like,
what? I was so naive. I was like, they're throwing their underwear.
Panties and hotel room keys.
We did not do that at the Air Supply concert. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Hey, Christy, what was yours?
Okay, so mine is kind of ridiculous, but my first concert was the Wallflowers. Do y'all remember the Wallflowers?
yes, of course.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it was so funny because I don't know like what I was thinking, but I mean, I remember thinking like really digging in about what I should wear to this concert. And I ended up wearing this, like, I remember wearing this like cardigan. Like how was I thinking that was a cool thing to wear to a concert? Like, I mean, I was in like 6th grade, you know, I mean, I don't know. But I like remember like picking it out, like of all the things to pick out, that was like the worst thing that I could have picked out to wear to a concert.
No, you could have worn Lily Pulitzer. That would have been worse.
That would have been worse. That would have been worse. You're right. This was like a step away. At least I had on like jeans, and like I remember wearing some like clogs were really in, and I had some like clogs that I wore. So yeah, that was my first one. But my second was Bruce Springsteen. That was a pretty good one.
Okay, now that's cool.
Yeah, that was a cool one.
You should just lie and tell people Bruce.
Just say
Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen. Right. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
erase it.
Okay. To show you how old I was when I was in school, graduate school, I was in Jersey, and he was putting up signs, you know, just hanging them up on the lamppost to talk to people about when his concerts were, just to get people to show up.
Yeah.
And I didn't go, otherwise my first concert would have been Bruce
Yeah.
Springsteen.
Good one, Mary Alice.
So this is where we segue into talking about music and poetry and how it affects our creativity and our writing. Now, I've known writers who create playlists or Spotify lists to inspire them while writing. Do any of you ladies do that? Patty, do you do that?
I do. I don't necessarily make a playlist, but I do try to listen to music that has something to do with the book I'm writing. So for example, when I was working on Joy, I played a lot of that kind of English Baroque music, that Oxford and London, that kind of thing. For me though, it can't have words. So if I'm listening to music while I'm writing, it can't have words, or my brain will start trying to sing the lyrics, or like that hard drive in the back of my head will. But yeah, music has always been, but more so, and I think y'all will agree, I can't wait to hear your answers. More so songs have inspired me.
Yeah.
I've heard a lyric, or like I just was joking about that, sending a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. You'll hear this line and it sticks with you, and that's inspired things in stories for sure. So not necessarily listening to the words. How about y'all?
Kristen, what about you? Do you do playlists or Spotify or?
No, it kind of like what Patty said, words take me out of it. So I can't listen to anything with words. And most of the time I just write in silence. I I don't think I've found, I mean, I write mostly about World War II now, and I'm not sure I've found the right music that feels like it transports me to the writing I need to do about World War II, because it's not World War II people dancing in dance clubs or something. It's a different kind of writing, and I haven't found the music to get me there yet. And so I think it's just easier in the silence of my own head. But I completely agree with you, Patty, about lyrics being really inspirational, and just sometimes songwriters can execute a turn of phrase in just a different way than we're able to, and in a way that like my mind just never would have connected those words. And it's one of the reasons I'm excited about our episode in a couple of weeks when we have Sister Hazel here, because I think they have some amazing turns of phrase in their lyrics. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with them.
Mary Alice, do you listen to music when you're writing?
It varies. I don't usually, but when I do, I read somewhere that the music of Mozart actually gets your brain synapses to go. It's very helpful. So sometimes I'll have it very soft in the background, but for the most part, like Kristen, I write in silence, so I don't get distracted.
Christy, what do you do?
I'm in silence a lot, but I'm sort of strange in that, like, I think we've talked, I don't know, I think I've talked to one of you about this before, but if it's something that I have listened to a million times, like James Taylor is an example where I know every word so well that it's like I don't think about it. It just blends into the background and it's like very soothing. When I'm editing, I like crank up whatever I'm loving the most right then. It's like when I'm like making corrections, because that feels so tedious to me. So I will really listen to music during that. But I agree with Patty. I think, I'll hear a lyric, or there'll be something that, you hear, it makes you think of something. And I also have sometimes used it, like, if I want to remember like what it felt like to be 16, or I want to remember what it felt like to go on that first date, or, whatever it was. There's always a song that makes you think of that. And
boyfriend's back and he's gonna be, and you're gonna do
when I wrote my first Christmas novella, Blue Christmas, it was August, and I was writing in a rented beach cottage on Tybee Island, so it was 112 degrees. So I took a boombox with me, and I played Elvis's Christmas albums, because obviously Blue Christmas, and Phil Spector's A Christmas Gift for You album, to get myself, because I was trying to summon a Christmas spirit. And then, sometimes a certain song, like I will think about, if I have a couple that's been together, I'm putting them together in a rom-com, or any kind of a book like that. I will try to think about what their song would be.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, so I was reading,
Christmas especially. I think that's why that's a good idea to think of.
Yeah, when I was writing a book a few years ago called Spring Fever. It was about my character had a girlhood crush on her best friend's older brother, and they ended up getting married, and stuff happens. So when I was writing that, this is the worst story ever. It's so corny. I channeled my girlhood crush on my best friend's twin brother. And he didn't, I would have died if anybody knew, but we had a song. He didn't know it. Our song was this Paul Moriarty instrumental called Love is Blue.
Oh, da 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 dee da.
So, that song, I played it over and over again, trying to sum it up. And when I was writing that story, I was trying to summon up that feeling of hopeless teenage crush. And back then I was trying to write poetry. And so, last week we talked about poetry when we had Delia Owens as our guest, and everyone, I think, was amazed that the poetry in Where the Crawdad Sings was her own original poetry. And I know some of you ladies actually write poetry. So I know poetry has a huge place in Patty and your writing practice. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think that for me, poetry is an art form that I can appreciate without ever feeling like I have to try it or do it. So when I read an amazing novel and the prose is blowing me away, I kind of stop in my tracks and want to figure it out or try to emulate it. But with poetry, I can just bask in it. I don't ever try to do it. I don't need to do it. I can just, so one of my favorite poets is David Whyte. And one of my favorite quotes he says is that poetry tries to say the unsayable. And I really like that a lot. When my daughter got married, I had no idea what to do for the speech at her wedding. So I memorized my first poem. And then I recited it. It was a poem by William Stafford. And the first line is, starting here, what do you want to remember? And he said what I couldn't say. So, and then when I feel out of sorts, I think y'all feel the same. Poetry is a very grounding thing to do. And like I said, I don't feel like I have to try and do it. So it's easy for me to enjoy fully. But do y'all do that? Do you listen to it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, like you, when I'm writing, I don't like to read other novels ever, because, and that's why vacation is reading novels, because you get to catch up, because I don't want anyone's words in my head. But when I do read poetry a lot when I write novels, because I think it's the most highest form of writing, in that it's so, each word is chosen. And they express in so few words what is so profound. And so many times when I get stuck, or I just want to be lifted or inspired, I'll go to my favorite poets. We were talking last time about how this summer during the pandemic, it's been really refreshing to read poetry in the morning. We just read one poem. We take turns, me and my sisters, and it's just sort of, the most fun one were Mary Oliver. And I think why Mary Oliver is so accessible is she writes so, it makes it look so easy. It's like Emily Dickinson in our day, you know, just she makes it straight, as she'd say. And it's just like, I think, wow, if I could do that. It's the old, I could do that, but of course you can't. And we're friends with Patty, with a really wonderful, the poet laureate of South Carolina, who's Marjorie Woodworth. And she is this energetic woman who can just zoom in and write great poetry. So I do write poetry, but not a lot of it. I've always been embarrassed to show it. That's what I said, you know, it's like, you know, it's not what I do. I'm not a poet, but I write it just because it helps me express emotions raw. Does that make sense at all? And so the only poem I've ever published was the one called Odyssey that's in On Ocean Boulevard. It's the first time that I published it. And I really love that poem. I mean, it nailed what I wanted to say in all my books about turtles. So there you are.
That's beautiful.
Christy and Kristen, does poetry speak to you, or?
I write it sometimes, and I would sooner die than have anyone read it. But I really would. But I'm like, but sometimes I'll be like, that's really good. And then I'm like, is it, or is it really, really bad? You know, you just don't really know. But I've never been someone that reads tons and tons of poetry. I mean, I love Mary Oliver, and I know we all do. And I do think, you know, that what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Like, that has to have changed everyone's life. I mean, that runs through my head all the time when I'm like trying to make a decision. And it's such a good way to describe your life. And I think that's what you're saying, Mary Alice, like, she does make it look accessible, even though maybe it's really not.
Like we all think we can write haiku because it's only 7 syllables. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Do you write or read poetry? Or you have a 4-year-old? I don't know when you would have time.
Well, my 4-year-old and I were making up rhymes about gluteus maximus today. So if that gives you any idea of the level of poetry I'm working on. But my very first published piece ever, when I was in 5th grade in the St. Petersburg Times, on the kids page of the St. Pete Times, was a poem I wrote called Mr. E and the Apple Tree. So my first and only, what's that?
You have to post it.
I don't even know where I would find it. I don't know. It was when I was in 5th grade, or maybe not even 4th grade, maybe. But yeah, so my first and only published piece of poetry. I greatly admire poets. It's something I don't think I can do. It's as mysterious to me as songwriting, which is another beautiful thing I wish I could do. But I have been reading a book of poetry recently called When Rap Spoke Straight to God by a writer named Erica Dawson, who I met a couple years ago. We did an event together. She's a poet and a creative writing professor. And Oprah magazine described it as a labyrinth of race, religion, rap, and wonder. And it is opening my eyes to things I didn't realize poetry could do. So I feel like everything I read that's outside of what I myself am capable of, it expands me as a writer and expands me as a person. So I'm appreciating that.
I love that.
And I'm glad. May I just say one thing about that? Because I was really intrigued you brought up about the hip hop. I think that's what was so striking about Hamilton, was it's the poetry of the young. And as someone of a different generation, to hear that and the power and the beauty of it was phenomenal for me. And it made me realize, these guys who started our country were young. And this was the language of our young. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Now we have a couple of announcements about forthcoming releases and re-releases, and I want to make sure everybody knows about them. Now, Mary Alice, I understand there's a gorgeous new reissue of the book club. Can you tell us about that?
I am so excited, and I don't even have a copy of the book to show you, but if you go to my Facebook page or website, it'll be up, but it's called The Book Club. And it's a re-release, so it's not a new novel. Right. And it's being re-released in trade paperback, and it's been re-edited, and I have one of those Dear Reader letters at the beginning. I am happy to say, it holds up. You write a book 10 years ago, and it's nice to see. And this is a story of women who are approaching 40. And I always thought being 40 was a time of change. You're saying goodbye. It's a second adolescence. I thought I was so wise at 40. Now I know how young I truly was. But when I wrote the book at 40s, I just had so much to say about that second adolescence, about being yourself and not being someone's mother all the time or someone's daughter. And how one thing, I've been in a book club for so long, and I know people in this was listening now have, when you read a line or you're reading a book for a group, and how something sticks with you and makes you think about your own life, I wanted to bring that into the novel. So it's called The Book Club, and it's a re-release, and it's out July 21st. Thank you.
Christy, do you have a re-release?
Yeah, well, The Secret to Southern Charm just came out in mass market paperback, which was kind of fun. And that's the second book in my Peachtree Bluff series. And it's been really fun because a lot of you guys have sent me pictures of it in your Kroger and your Walgreens and all of those fun places. And I love mass markets because you can throw them in your beach bag and they don't weigh much, and you can. But it's the second book in my Peachtree Bluff series, but you can definitely read it as a standalone. And yeah, it was exciting. It's number 13 on some sort of bestseller list at Kroger or something. I'm not really sure. Someone sent me a picture and was like, it's on this bestseller list. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but great.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Good for you.
And Kristen's new novel, The Book of Lost Names, comes out July 21st. And as we might have mentioned, pre-orders are incredibly important to the success of a new novel, even more so in a pandemic. So we have included the link to pre-order, and we do hope that you'll be inspired by what we've talked about. We've all read it and loved it. So that's all we're going to say about that. So we're going to go move to the discussion questions, and we're trying to do kind of a lightning round so we can get to a lot of your questions, because we want to know what you want to know, and we want to tell you what we know about what you want to know. My question was from Robin Shelley, and these questions were all posted on the Friends in Fiction Facebook page. Robin Shelley asked what I do when I get stuck in the dreaded middle section of the story I'm writing. And I chose this because that's right where I'm at with my book in progress, which will be out next summer. I am in the sloppy, saggy, dreaded middles, and they are always a struggle for me. I try to tell myself you're halfway home or a third or whatever. And so to get through it, I might write down a list of plot points I still need to check off before I get to the finish line, or think about what emotional turning point my protagonist needs to have reached. Today, I was just trying to get to a kiss. I was just trying to get to where the love interest kisses the protagonist. And, so I just put one foot in front of the other. Sometimes to change things up, I'll write out a scene out of sequence, but I write in a linear fashion. Now, who else has a question that they chose? Kristen, did you choose a question to answer for yourself?
Yeah, so this one is from Patricia Delo. Since there are hundreds of people watching and joining, how does this venue compare with book tours for you? And how long do you intend to do this? Well, first of all, I think I can say we're all in agreement that we plan to do this indefinitely. I can't imagine, right? I mean, ladies, would you agree with me?
Yes.
I can't imagine
For
ever
sure.
stopping. I mean, I feel like we've just found a place to be ourselves and to meet our readers and to get together with each other every week. And, one of the things that I think we've all really appreciated is that people are commenting all the time on our Friends in Fiction group saying they feel like that we're friends, like that, they've found friends in each other and they feel like they found friends in us. And I that just means the world to me. I think you all agree. So we're going to be here, whether you all like it or not. We're sticking around. But how does this compare with book tours? I think it's not, they're just two different things. We started this off because we weren't on tour, and because this seemed like a substitute for book tours, sort of, in a way. It's not. I mean, there's no comparison to being there in person and meeting you and shaking your hand or giving you a hug, which we wouldn't be able to do now anyhow, right? Or being in these wonderful bookstores that we all feel so strongly about supporting. But this is just a whole new thing that we found. I mean, how else would we all be sitting in our own homes on a Wednesday night, interacting with 800 or 1,000 of you? I mean, this is amazing. It's an amazing opportunity. And I think we just all feel so blessed and so grateful that we're here and that you're all here with us.
Totally.
Patty, what question did you want to answer?
Me? Did you say?
Yeah. Yeah, Patty. Is there another Patty? I don't think
That's
so.
me. That's me. I actually didn't pick one off the Facebook because the five of us were talking this week.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
That doesn't matter. And so one of my favorite podcasts is called On Being with Krista Tippett. And I love how every week she asks every guest she has the same leading question. So the five of us talked a lot about what would be that question that we will ask every guest. And we've had some amazing guests. We have some blow your mind guests coming up. What is that one question that kind of gives you the background of their life without doing a full, background check? And so I thought it'd be fun for me to ask you guys that question. And the question we all thought might be really interesting is, what were the values of reading and writing in your family growing up? How was writing and reading valued? Did you have a library full of books? Did your mom encourage it? So I'm going to shoot it around the circle. Christy, how about you?
Yes, reading was definitely highly encouraged in my house, and we had so many books. And my mom would read to me for hours and hours, and I loved being read to. And she always tells this story about how I was like 2 or 3, like very tiny, an age where you will not sit still. And that she sat down with me and just wanted to see how long I would let her read. And after like 3 hours, she had no voice. And I was still saying, one more story, mommy, one more story. But we definitely, we went to the bookstore every week. We went to the library every week. There were not enough books for me ever. Like, I remember this little used bookstore in our town, and my dad would take me on Saturday mornings. And I would spend, he was very patient, hours in there, and just have, hordes of books that were like 50 cents or whatever. So yeah, definitely grew up a big reader for sure.
How about you, Kathy?
My parents didn't have a lot of money for books. There were 5 of us, born right one after the other. But my mother was a huge reader. And so we did have books in the house by hook or by crook. And we were big library users. The bookmobile came to the shopping center near our house. When it came, we would get on, and all 5 of us would check out the maximum number they would let us have. And then we would all climb off the bookmobile, and the tires would rise because we had all the books.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. How about you, Mary Alice?
Well, I'm one of 10 children. And so we, there were a lot of books, but never enough. You know, we would reread the same books all the time. We had a library in the house, but not so many little kids' books. So we would go to the library, and when we went to the library, it was a major effort because we'd all, you know, here come the children from that family, and we would take over, and our books were always overdue, always. And so, but I think what was interesting to me is my mom was an avid reader, but she was pregnant. I'm the third eldest, and she was pregnant a lot when I grew up. And so she was in bed a lot of the times towards the last 5 because she had 10 cesarean sections. And so the doctor, back in the day, so the doctor would put her to bed for the last couple months. And that's where storytelling, I think, was such an important part for me as one of the big kids, the elder sisters. We would read books to the kids to put them to bed, but a lot of the times we made up stories. So, you know, for something I'd read, we were all into fantasy, a little too much perhaps. And stories would be very much a part of our lives, but we read, but we also made them up to put the kids to bed. Because there's 10 of you, it's a whole nother scenario. It really is.
Yeah, so interesting to think about how our families either fed or didn't feed into our desire to do what we're doing. Kristen, how about you?
Yeah, I came from a family where reading was very valued. My mom read to us all the time. You know, I was that kid, as I'm sure you probably all were too, who would sneak books under the covers at night with a flashlight. You know, like that was being badly behaved. And what I was just reaching for, as you were talking about it, it occurred to me, I had this book on my shelf. Gus Was a Friendly Ghost, and this is one of the few things I took from my grandmother's house after she passed away, because it's a book I have memories of her reading to me when I was a child. So, you know, I'm like tearing up. I read this to Noah the other day, and it kind of brought my grandmother back. I was really close to her. I love her very much. And I have an aunt who's only about 14 years older than me, my Aunt Donna. If you're watching, hi. But she was a big reader, and I looked up to her so much when I was a kid, because she was, you know, the young, cool aunt, and so reading was cool. And so Aunt Donna helped make reading really cool for me too.
Okay, who else has got a question that they pulled off the website?
I have one.
Steve.
So Carol Baker Falconberry asked, do you ever include some family secrets or your own secrets in any of your books? And I just had to answer this question because I know this happens to all of us when we have readers come to us and say, I have a story that you have to write. And like 99.9% of the time, we would say, thank you so much. That's your story. You should write it. Well, one time I had someone tell me a story that I had to write, and she said, I'm the last person living that knows this story, and you have to write it. And she tells me this secret, and I said, I can have her write that because no one would believe that that actually happened. And so some of you probably know this story, but when I got the deal for my Peachtree Bluff series, I was not expecting to pitch an idea for a series, and I pitched it off the top of my head. And that was the secret. It popped into my head, and I swear it was like her coming to me from the other side, because it was absurd. Like, I thought I could never pull this off, but it was all I could think of in that moment. And I pitched that secret. And the woman that became my editor was like, I have never read that before. So I was like, I have to answer that question, because it wasn't really the secret that she told me, but it was a takeoff of it. And so it was, I think it's so neat that something that someone else told me could have inspired 3 books, the whole series.
That's amazing.
That is.
Who else has got a question that they pulled
I
off?
do, from Kylie Walton, and she asks, do you edit as you write your first draft, or do you sort of pull it together as you write? And that's an interesting question. I think every author does his own thing. For me, I usually write fast, like we're doing our sprints, and I just write a lot of words. But the next morning, I always begin by reading over the previous words. And that gets me back into the flow when I do that. And a lot of times I'll edit, you know, the dialogue didn't sound quite right, and I like to read aloud. So I do edit just that much during my first draft. And when I send the book in, then real editing begins after that. But the first draft is light. And do I cut and paste and move things around? No, I keep going forward, because the goal for a lot of first drafts is to make sure the book is done. The book you don't really know what you're trying to say in a novel until you're about halfway through, and a couple light bulbs go off. So you can adjust as you move forward. So my recommendation to all young writers, and what I do, is I just get that first shitty draft done.
Who else has got a question that they pulled? Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah, so who is pulling the live questions off the website?
Yes, you guys, I have a few that I've saved that I've just been watching them come in. But if anybody has one right now, you can ask it right now and I'll try to get to it. Okay, so the first one is, this isn't a question, but I just had to say it because I remember this too. Susan Schwartz Seligman said, my favorite days in school were library day, book fair day, and when the Scholastic book orders came out. And I mean, 100%.
I remember that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I mean, just all three of those, like real highlights.
I remember this great meme I saw once that said, I'm still chasing the high of a Scholastic book fair.
Oh, yes, it's awesome.
Oh my God, it's so much fun.
I love to go work it at Will's school because I'm like, I get to be here again. I get to be at the book fair. This is so great. Shelby Henderson has a really good question. She said, I want to read some more modern poets other than Mary Oliver. Any poet suggestions?
Yeah, I just said I would read Marjorie Wentworth. Kwame Alexander is he's the Newbery Award winning poet. And Wendell Berry. These are really, of course, Frost, everyone knows that, but it's just, those are really accessible poets that I think are Emily Dickinson.
Who's the Irish poet? He came to the Decatur Book Fair a few years ago and he was phenomenal.
Oh, not Seamus O'Haney. Billy Collins.
Billy Collins.
Oh, Billy Collins. Brilliant.
From Florida. He's he's the poet laureate of Florida. I actually did an event with him a couple years ago. He's great.
He's so funny and reverent, and Billy Collins.
And I would definitely suggest, I quoted him a minute ago, David White. He's modern. He's active now. He's not doing them right now with the pandemic, but he does walking tours of poetry in England and in Ireland, and he's amazing too. So.
And Erica Dawson as well, the one I mentioned earlier, who wrote When Rap Spoke Straight to God, which came out in 2018. So that's relatively new, and she's still writing, and she's phenomenal and accessible and really interesting.
I think we'll start a thread, because I know.
Great idea.
Yeah, I know the minute we're done,
we're all going to start.
Yeah. It's always hard on the spot. So we'll start a thread, and everybody can add their favorite modern poets. I think that's a great idea.
Great idea.
What do you got?
This is another not really question, but everyone has to hear this because I love it. Connie Cooper said, anyone remember weekly readers that you received in the summer?
Yes!
I mean, loved. I had totally forgotten about those. Okay, this is a good one. This is a really good one. Julie Jordan Booth, and I'm going to toss this one to you first, Mary Alice, because you have the best answer for this, says, I love listening to Audible books. Would any of you narrate your own books?
Yeah, I do. I actually always thought I wanted to, but I auditioned. I sent my tape to Brilliance Audio, and they said yes, because I always figured I didn't want to be the author who had that voice like this and wanted to read her book.
Me.
So,
no, you could
want to have a good voice. So I've read most of my books from the Beach House on, and then other beautiful recording artists did the earlier ones, but it's very hard work. Mm-hmm. But I love it.
The only thing I've ever done is read my author note. I've read my author's note.
It was beautiful too.
Oh, I like that. Well, and you podcast very well, and that's similar.
What other questions do we have, Christy? We have time for some more?
Okay, yeah, I think so. Nancy Langan says titles during the writing or prior to.
Oh. During, because I still don't have a title for my book and I need a title within the next week. So you guys have all helped me. But yeah, usually for me, the title comes once I have the idea. This is a very late title for me.
For me, usually I start with a title. I think it's a throwback to my newspaper days. When I was a newspaper reporter, I would write my own headlines because I didn't like the ones the copy desk gave me. So I would write it at the top of my story. And it gives me, for me, it helps me keep my mind on what the story is about. But with Hello Summer, my editor came up with that title and she just said, all right, write a book about Hello Summer.
Wow. Mine come before, during, or after. They've come all, I've changed titles right before the title was released. I've had it before I've written it, and I found it in the writing. So all of the above for me.
Yeah, that's why we call it the working title a lot, because I remember, I think I wanted Turtle Summer and it became The Beach House, which apparently a lot of other authors like too. So.
I'm all over the place too. I mean, I'm before, during, after. My next book, Under the Southern Sky, I knew what the book was going to be about and had written maybe like 2 chapters of it. And normally mine come from a line in the book. I had not written a line at all that was Under the Southern Sky, but I was on my spin bike. We were talking about this earlier today, and it just popped in my head, Under the Southern Sky. And I was like, that's the title. And I was so shocked because I sent it and everyone liked it, which doesn't happen like that often. I feel like sometimes it's all over the map. Someone loves it, someone hates it, someone likes this better. So I love it when it sticks like that and when everyone's like, yes, that's the title.
And the hard part about titles is the harder you try to think of one, the less likely you are to think of one. Can I get an
Exactly.
That's
Patty, you came up, I remember with the summer guest, that was Patty, you came up with that title because I wanted to call it Whirlwind. I loved that title, and my publisher said no, and I was duking it out. And so I was talking to Patty and complaining and crying, and she says, well, what about the summer guest? Everyone loved it, and there it is.
So good, so good.
Yeah, I had a book title for Hissy Fit. I was taking a bubble bath and I was mad about something that someone had done. And I just thought to myself, I'm just going to pitch a Hissy Fit. And that was like, okay, that's the title. I don't know what the book's about, but that's what I'm going to write.
awesome.
And it's one of my favorite titles. One of my favorite. I just love that title.
It's a great title.
I
We're
love
always
that.
jealous of Kathy's titles. She always has such.
Yeah.
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 Hissy Fit was a good one. That was like that's a forever favorite book of yours for me. I love that book. I really, really love that one. Somebody wants to know, and I can answer this or anyone can answer this. I can't find it now, but 2 different people asked, do pre-orders of ebooks help us?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All pre-orders, help. And so again, we're going to say, Kristen has a book out in a few weeks. So if you're curious about ordering or reading it, now's the time, because I don't think a lot of readers truly understand that those few weeks right before and at point of delivery are so important.
Well, and at this time, I mean, people are running out of books. The publishers are, everything is slower. It's not like our normal shipping times and our normal warehouse schedules. And so if they know that you need the book, you're much more likely to get it, I think.
True.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Do we have time for one more, Mary Kay?
Yeah, I think we
Okay. This is kind of a fast one. So Mary Nilsson Kinstra wants to know, what are your favorite podcasts?
Oh, Patty's going to jump in on this one.
I already mentioned it. I think my favorite podcast is On Being with Krista Tippett. She interviews the most fascinating people. Everything from poets to authors to neuroscientists to astronomies to, there isn't a podcast she does that I don't find fascinating. And she has the long version where she interviewed them, and then she has the cut version that's on NPR, but she's amazing.
Wow. Interesting.
How about you?
My guilty pleasure podcast. I haven't been walking much lately, but when I do walk, my daughter turned me on to Young House Love.
Oh my gosh. What is that?
Oh, it's this couple, and they rehab houses and
Oh, they have a show, right? They have a
Yeah.
TV show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no, they don't have a TV show, but they've been blogging, and
Okay.
they just sold their house. They had 2 houses in Maryland. They had a beach house and they had a house outside of Richmond. And now they bought a house down on the Florida Panhandle that they're redoing. So that's kind of my guilty pleasure.
I love
Makes
that.
sense, it would be. You love houses.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is it for questions, I think. Now, Christy, do you have a writing tip for us tonight?
I do. Well, it's a little less of a writing tip and it's a little more of an editing tip because, as you guys know, that's what I've been doing for the last 2 weeks. And this is really simple, but I think we all do this. And we're sort of chatting about this in our text this morning. But there are certain words that we tend to overuse or say a
Yeah.
lot. For me, it's just,
Yes.
well, I mean, there's a whole list of them. And so about 3 books ago, I decided that instead of having to realize that every single time I wrote a book, that I would just keep a running list of them. And it varies from book to book, but there's some that just are over and over again. And so whenever I realize that I'm using that word way too much, I add it to the list. And then when I'm editing, I go through and search that word and I see how many times I've used it and then try to take it out when I can. So it's not really a writing tip, but it has saved me a little bit of time. And we're so used to reading our own writing. I think we miss some of those things sometimes. So it's been really useful for me.
Isn't it funny how it changes with every book?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm,
And maybe it's the character too.
Yep.
The character's voice is different and they say a certain word a lot.
Kristen and I were just sort of texting about that this morning briefly. It's not just a word. Sometimes it's a point I'm making, and I'll say it so many times that it's like, like I joked this morning, why say it once when you can say it 7 times?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you have to take it out. But I remember one time my editor said, Mary Alice, I think they were always jerking their heads. She said, everyone in the entire book is jerking.
hilarious.
It's like eye rolling. I have to be careful
Yes.
with eye rolling.
Yeah.
Or lifting your chin, or
Yeah.
My characters all speak softly and murmur, so I always have to knock that out of drafts.
Okay.
Somebody on here said that every book they read, someone pushes someone's hair behind their ears. And I was like, oh, I never say that. And I was reading Under the Southern Sky and there was this scene and he like pushes and I was like, oh my God, she's right. She's totally right.
when I was finishing editing, that's so funny you say it, when I was finishing editing the Florence Nightingale short story I just finished, everybody's eyes kept being a light. And a light that's never a word I use, but because I was writing about the 1830s, I was like, or 1840s, I was using like that language, but then I just got stuck on that. And I was like, yeah, not good.
Okay, we're going to talk about quickly what everybody is reading, and I'm going to just hold up what I'm reading because it is
You and I are always buddy reading books without knowing it.
oh, I know. Kristen
You're
and I
preparing for her visit.
yeah, we've got Jasmine Guillory next week, and this her book came out just this past week, so that's what I'm reading. And Mary Alice, you're reading something.
Yeah,
that just came
I
out.
love Susan Wiggs, just adore her. She's great, and she has a fabulous new book out called The Oysterville Sewing Circle. She writes groups of friends, book stories as good or better than anyone. I love it. Oysterville Sewing Circle.
I don't have the book because it's not out yet, so I only have it on but I'm reading Fiona's new Lines of Fifth Avenue because she's our guest in a few weeks.
Fiona Davis.
And-
It is.
And
Fiona Davis, yeah.
yeah, Fiona, is that what I said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just put Fiona.
Oh,
We were just adding her last name in.
Fiona Davis is-
She's like Cher. She doesn't need a last
She doesn't
name.
need a last name, yeah.
Yeah.
she's like Madonna. She's just Fiona. Fiona Davis, Lions of Fifth Avenue. It comes out in a couple weeks. And I mean, come on, we're book nerds. The whole thing takes place in the New York Public Library.
Awesome.
And for bookworm nerds like me, and there's a heist and a book goes missing, and it's like a childhood fantasy to live in the library. And then, so I'm loving it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, does anybody have a debut novel? Because we're trying to talk about debut novels when we can. Yep.
Not this week.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We love hearing your questions and your comments and knowing that you're even recruiting members from total strangers you meet on the beach, like one of our members told us this week.
Gold stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would also love it if you would follow us individually on our Instagram pages, and you can find the links on the website. And also, something I think I've been meaning to talk about is if you have loved a book, really loved a book, it would be great if you would share that love with a positive review wherever, whether it's on the A word, which we don't say on this show, but Goodreads, there are lots of places for book reviews. And if you love a book, you won't believe what a boost you can give a book by telling people that you love it.
And an author.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, last night I finished a book. I've loved this book so much. It's called The Sweeney Sisters, Leanne Dolan. And at midnight I finished it and I fangirled her a message just to say, I love this book. I wish I had written this book. I hate you for writing it. So don't forget to join us next Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, when our guest will be New York Times bestselling author Jasmine Guillory, and her new book, Romantic Comedy, is part 2. And we have posted a link on the website so that you can order that now ahead of next week. And we'll see you then. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
2 weeks, Kristen, and it's your turn. We get to fangirl over you.
Oh my
The
gosh.
Book of Lost Names. It was so good. I talk about it everywhere. And the most hilarious thing is I was doing a Facebook Live the other night, and Kristen popped in. She wasn't there. I have been doing it for 10 minutes. Then she pops in, and it's right as I'm like, you have to read the Book of Lost Names. It's so good. I was getting my hair cut. I was crying. And she was like, what a great time for me to pop in. And I'm like, so I talk about all of y'all's books every time I'm doing something now because I
assumed.
Super fan.
It was funny timing. Thank you for that mention, though. That was really
You're
good.
getting ready for the non-book tour. So what does it look like for you?
Yeah, everything kind of kicks off next week. I think my first bookstore event is the 14th, which is about a week before the book actually comes out. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stuff, and I feel very overwhelmed. I think I'm in this.
Yeah.
I'm still in this quarantine mindset, sort of, where the world outside doesn't exist, and all that matters is Wednesday nights. And now I'm like, wait, I have to show up other times other than Wednesday nights. I'm so confused. But I'm just excited. It's going to be just an opportunity to meet some other booksellers and other readers that maybe aren't with us yet on Friends in Fiction, and it's just going to be fun.
Do you have your Zoom wardrobe lined up?
Yeah, always yoga pants or sweatpants on the bottom, as you know. Except tonight when I'm wearing a dress, which I realized when I stood up to get that book, I'm like, I probably just flashed everybody. So apologies if you all saw my gluteus maximus tonight.
No.
We're gonna rewind and check.
Yes, my tour wardrobe consists mostly of Express Portofino shirts, which don't have to be ironed and which I can just snap over my whatever sport I'm wearing that day with my t-shirts.
That's a super idea.
That's a good strategy.
Did you get your hair done before book tour?
No, because I'm still,
So what?
Florida, and I'm just nervous. Yeah, I did cutting my own bangs. Otherwise, they'd be to here now. But
Brave.
the rest of it just looks awful. This isn't how my hair usually looks, but
Well,
I
like it.
It looks great.
Yeah, I'm not a bang person. I cut bangs on a whim in, I think, November. I mean, well, not cut them, but had them cut, and assumed they would be grown out by now. It just was something I was going to do for a couple months in the winter, and here I am with no real good way to grow them out.
I don't even
Good look.
I don't know you without bangs. I love you.
I know, but I feel like I don't look like my author photo. People are going to be like, she didn't write that book. She's the girl with bangs.
Have you ever been in a store when someone, somebody speaks to you, or I don't know, are signing and you say, I wrote that book, and they look at your author photo and they go, that isn't you.
Yep.
Or they say, wow, you look way better in the photo.
Oh, you're like,
Oh my
No
God.
one's actually said that to me. That's pretty
It's always
great.
the man who says it, by the way.
Anyone ever says to me, I recognize you from your author photo, I go, oh my gosh, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
I spent a lot of money to look that good.
exactly.
I was having my mammogram yesterday, and it was pretty early in the morning, and I went to the wrong office, and I had on my mask, and there were two ladies there, and one was at the desk, and she turned around, looked at me, and she said, I know you somehow. I said,
Oh,
I don't, all she can see is this.
oh that's
I said,
interesting.
She said, you wrote a book, didn't you?
Serious?
Yeah, and
Or
and then you're
30.
like, yeah, but I'm late for my appointment. Where do I go?
Oh,
Well, yeah,
that's
I said,
actually,
she
that's
said,
awesome.
you wrote a book, didn't you? And I said, yes. She goes, well, tell me your name again. And I said, well, I write as Mary Kay Andrews. And the other lady went, oh my God, Mary Kay Andrews.
That's amazing.
I love it.
If Kathy and I tried to wear bangs, we'd have two little pom-poms on our forehead.
I have never had bangs in my entire life, like not as a child, not anytime. And I always kind of like want to try it, but I'm terrified.
You'd
They
look
have little
so
pieces of
beautiful.
hair pieces you can get that you can tuck in
That's
Yeah.
true.
here,
Yeah.
and it gives you bangs, so you can see if you like it.
Well,
Like,
the
good
thing
idea.
with
That's a good
mine,
idea.
Yeah,
I
it's
had you could actually do the Brazilian blowout just in your bangs. So they fall straight and like perfectly. And so I had that for the last time in maybe January, and it lasts for about 3 months. It has absolutely worn off now. So like tomorrow morning I'll wake up and my bangs will be like this and like curled. I mean, the only way they look like this for a couple hours on a Wednesday night because I flat iron the heck out of them. But it's much better if you can do the Brazilian blowout in your bangs.
Okay.
The word Brazilian scares me, and I'm not thinking about a blow.
No, it's good. It's like a little chemical treatment. It's about $30 just to do your bangs.
That's
I
so
like it.
fun. Yeah.
All right,
And
ladies.
then I'd forget and they'd be half curly, half straight. So Kristen, I always find the 2 weeks before a book comes out is more stressful even than
Yeah.
when the book comes out. Late, I mean, don't, like
Yes.
that leading
Yeah.
up to it.
Yes.
So we're with you.
Yes.
Thank you. Well,
Yes.
and you all four of you have been so supportive, as well as if there's anybody still watching us out there, you all have been so supportive too. And I really, it means a lot to me. All the kind words and kind thoughts.
The book is wonderful, and
mean a
it
great deal.
deserves
Thank you.
every success.
Thank you
It
so
does.
much. Thank
It
you.
does.
So nervous. Thank you.
I have to go have a birthday party for my 9-year-old.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh,
sweet.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Birthday to
Griff.
him.
Yeah,
And ladies, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to be seeing my baby granddaughter.
Oh, safe
Fly
journey.
after 7.5 months and see her. So y'all take care of Jasmine Guillory while I'm gone, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Miss
Safe
you.
journey.
Good night,
Do your
y'all.
math.
Everybody.
Love y'all.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.